This happened 8 years ago. I was out of sorts after losing my wife. I thought visiting the old research facility would help. I was an urban planner, hoping to turn this place into something good, an eco-friendly development. The building was falling apart. Machines were rusting and weeds were everywhere. It felt eerie. I set up my sleeping bag in one of the dusty offices. It was quiet. Too quiet. As night fell, I felt a deep loneliness. Then, I started to hear it. A faint whirring sound came from under the floor. I figured it was just the building settling. I tried to ignore it, but it made me uneasy. The next day, I went through old files looking for plans and drawings. I found some strange diagrams. They didn't look like anything I'd seen before. It was a mix of symbols and equations. A chill went down my spine. I brushed it off. My mind was just playing tricks on me. After losing Lisa, it had been hard to focus. That night, the whirring grew stronger. It turned into a hum, resonating through the walls. I could see shadows flickering in the corners. I felt like I was being watched. It didn't make sense. I kept saying it was just my imagination. But there was something different about this place. I stood in the central hallway, heart racing. The hum was all around me now. I looked around, searching for its source, but saw nothing. I felt sweat on my brow, the air thick with tension. The sensation of dread wrapped around me, tight as a knot. I forced myself back to the archive room, hoping to find some answers. As I flipped through more papers, I noticed the diagrams told an unsettling story. Someone had been trying to reach beyond our world. Panic bubbled inside me. I tried to tell myself not to think like that. The grief was messing with my head. Then, I heard it again. A whisper. "Why are you here?" The sound froze me. I turned, expecting to see someone. Nothing. Just shadows and layers of dust. My pulse raced. The hum intensified, vibrating through me. I could taste something metallic in the air. Then I felt something cold brush against my cheek. I gasped and spun around. No one was there. Just the darkness. "Is someone there?" I called out, my voice shaky. Silence answered. I wondered if I should leave. But deep down, I felt drawn to uncover whatever this was. A mix of fear and curiosity pulled me back. I kept looking for answers. I needed to understand, but the whisper came again. "We are waiting." It left me cold, my mind racing with fear. Was I losing my sanity? I turned to leave, but the shadows swirled around me, blocking my path. The room grew colder, and I remembered why I came here. I just wanted peace. But this place felt anything but peaceful. The whispers grew louder, echoing in my mind. "You shouldn't have come." The walls seemed to close in on me. I knew I had to escape, but the shadows held me tight, and I couldn't see the way out. I was frozen, heart hammering against my ribs. I groped for the door, but the shadows twisted around me like fingers. The whispers were louder now, urgent and desperate. "You were not meant to be here." I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the overwhelming fear. I had come to find closure, to make sense of my life, not to become part of some dark history. But standing in that room, I felt the past reach out to me. It was more than just echoes of the research done here. It was a tangible presence. Finally, I found the strength to push through the swirling darkness. I stumbled back toward the hallway, nearly tripping over a loose floorboard. I had to get out. I had to escape whatever dream or nightmare I had entered. The hum pulsed beneath my feet, seemed to resonate with my own fear. I rushed down the corridor, breath coming in ragged gulps. The walls seemed to stretch away from me as if the building itself was rejecting my presence. Shadows flickered against the dim light, and I could almost hear them saying, "Stay with us." Just as I approached the exit, my foot caught on something. I fell hard, knocking the wind from my lungs. I glanced back and froze. The air beyond the door had darkened, thickening like fog. That wasn't right. I shook my head, forcing myself to focus. Then I saw it. Beneath the rubble, partially hidden by dust and debris, was a small object. It glinted faintly, beckoning me. Against every instinct screaming at me to flee, I crawled toward it. What if it actually held answers? What if it could explain all the unsettling things I had felt? I reached for it, hands trembling. It was cold to the touch, surprisingly smooth. As I brushed off the dirt, my heart sank. It was a small metallic sphere, covered in intricate symbols matching the diagrams I had seen earlier. I felt a jolt of recognition. Or was it dread? Was I somehow connected to whatever this was? Then everything went dark. Instantly, the hum ceased. The whispers faded into silence. I was paralyzed by the absence of sound, as if the world had hitched its breath. I blinked in shock. My surroundings transformed. I was no longer in that decaying hallway. Instead, I stood in a vast open space, surrounded by shimmering lights. It felt otherworldly, almost like a different dimension. Was this the place those diagrams hinted at? Suddenly, I felt a presence beside me, something hovering just at the edge of my awareness. My skin prickled as I turned, but I couldn't see anything. The air shimmered, alive with an energy I couldn't comprehend. "Why are you still here?" It was a voice, familiar yet foreign, echoing in this strange realm. I took a step back, heart racing. I knew I had to get back, but part of me felt tethered to this moment. The metallic sphere hummed in my hand, resonating with the energy around me. I was connected now, a part of something greater, but terrifying. Then I heard it again. The voice was clearer this time. "You need to choose." Choose what? I felt the weight of the question settle on me, heavy and ominous. What lay behind those hidden doors of the past? What would my answer mean for me, and for those lost? Time was slipping away, and I could feel the pull of the building behind me. I had to decide if I was ready to face what awaited, or if I would turn back and leave this all behind. I stood frozen in that luminous space, the metallic sphere pulsing in my hand. The voice lingered in my mind, echoing its demand. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but my curiosity tugged me forward. What awaited me if I chose to stay? I glanced around, searching for any hint of my surroundings. The shimmering lights danced above, flickering like stars caught in a surreal twilight. Yet, underneath the beauty was an unsettling energy, a vibrational hum that tugged at my awareness. Gritting my teeth, I clutched the sphere tighter. "Choose," the voice pressed again. What options did I really have? Suddenly, images flashed before me. I saw lab technicians hunched over their stations, frantic scribbles on paper, eyes wide with desperation. I saw one with frantic movements, his expression shifting from hope to despair as data printed out, light cascading across his face. Then the room dissolved into darkness, a warning of what had come after. It was a glimpse into the chaos that had bloomed from the research, the very root of my search. I turned back, scanning for an escape. To my shock, I saw a figure taking shape from the shadows. It flickered in and out, almost like an old movie reel rolling erratically. Panic surged in me. Was this one of the voices I had heard? My heart raced again as the figure solidified, a silhouette of a woman with long hair billowing around her like smoke. "Help me," she whispered, voice fragile, filled with something deeper. The sphere vibrated in my palm, reacting to her presence. "Who are you?" I shouted into the void, the echo returning like a taunt. "I am bound here," she murmured, eyes pleading. "You must see what happened, or we will be lost forever." What kind of burden was this? I had wanted answers about my past, but I hadn't signed up for this. I took a cautious step backward as her form flickered again. The shimmering lights intensified, and the air grew heavier. "Please," she urged, a desperation filling her voice. "Your choice decides everything." Suddenly, the ground beneath me quaked. The light dimmed, swirling like a storm. I felt the sphere heat up, a warning that something was coming. I glanced at the woman. The sadness emanating from her was palpable. No longer mere curiosity, I now sensed a responsibility. Before I could decide, the lights burst into darkness with a deafening roar. I stumbled backward, clenching the sphere tightly. Then everything snapped back to clarity. I was no longer in the ethereal space, but standing at the doorway of the crumbling building once more. The hallway loomed before me, cold and daunting. What had just happened? The hum surged back, vibrating through the walls. I felt the weight of the voice's words settle deep in my chest. I hadn't made a choice, yet everything was shifting around me as if the universe was pushing me forward. Now I had to find out what that meant. I stepped back into the hallway, heart racing once more. Find the truth, I muttered to myself. But as I moved deeper into the shadows, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was no longer alone. Someone, or something, was watching. I moved forward cautiously, the air thick with the chill of the unknown. The hallway stretched infinitely, shadows lurking at the edges of my vision, whispering promises and threats in equal measure. I forced myself to focus, the sphere still warm in my grip, a silent reminder of the burden on my shoulders. Get it together, I murmured. I had already seen too much to turn back now. As I ventured deeper, I noticed strange symbols etched into the walls. They glowed faintly, pulsing as if they were alive. I reached out, tracing one with my fingertips. The texture was rough, almost like worn stone, yet the energy radiating from it buzzed with an unsettling familiarity. This was more than abandoned architecture. It felt almost like a language, an echo of the past begging to be understood. "Where are you?" I whispered, uncertain if I was speaking to the woman or the presence watching me. The silence offered no reply. Suddenly, a door at the end of the hallway creaked open, revealing a small room filled with scattered papers and flickering images projected against the walls. My heart raced, curiosity battling my instincts. I stepped inside, captivated by the chaos of information. There were fragments of documents detailing experiments, graphs spiraling into chaos, and photographs of people I didn't recognize. Then, something caught my eye. A photograph slid to the floor, revealing a face that chilled me to the bone. It was the woman from the luminous void. Her eyes seemed alive, penetrating through the paper. The sight sent a shiver up my spine. "Why were they experimenting on you?" I asked the photo, feeling as if it might be listening. I bent down to pick it up, my fingers trembling. That's when I heard it. A low, guttural sound echoing from somewhere deep within the building. It sent me straight back to my feet, pulse racing. The presence was closer now. I could feel it. An awareness, almost predatory. As if it were waiting for me, testing my intent. "Show yourself," I shouted, voice trembling, half hoping the act would give me strength. The sound grew louder, and the lights overhead flickered, casting strange shadows. I turned quickly, scanning the room for an escape route. It felt like a trap closing around me, and I suddenly regretted stepping inside. But the sphere pulsed in my grasp, reminding me of the choice ahead. Suddenly, a dark shape slithered across my periphery. I spun around just in time to catch a glimpse, a figure just out of reach, distorted and hazy. My heart raced as it vanished behind a wall. "Hey, come back!" I yelled, my voice swallowed by the encroaching darkness. I took a step forward, my instincts screaming for me to run, but I had to know, had to understand why I was here. That's when I heard her whisper again, threading through the air like a ghost. "Find the truth." I stumbled backward as the door slammed shut behind me. The finality of it struck me, and panic swelled in my chest. I was trapped. Then the lights flickered one last time, and a voice echoed sharp and commanding. "You should not have come here." And with that, everything went dark. The darkness wrapped around me like a thick fog, heavy and suffocating. I blinked several times, trying to adjust, but I could see nothing. The stillness felt charged, as if the air itself held its breath. My heart hammered in my chest, and I took a tentative step forward, the sphere still a beacon of warmth in my palm. "Hello?" I whispered into the void. My voice echoed back at me, eerily distorted. The silence pressed down heavier now. I felt a surge of panic, a claustrophobic realization that I might not be alone. Just as I was wrestling with my fear, the lights flickered back on, casting a harsh glow that revealed my surroundings once more. I was still in the small room, but the door was now ominously ajar. Unease twisted in my stomach. Had someone opened it, Or was it just a cruel trick of the lighting? I took a cautious step toward the door. "I don't want any trouble," I called out, my words feeling hollow. The only response was the creaking of wood. Pushing the door wider, I peered into the dimly lit hallway outside, but it was empty. The familiar pulse of the symbols on the walls caught my eye again, casting flickering shadows that danced like ghosts. As I hesitated, a faint sound broke the silence. Whispers, low and urgent. I strained to listen, but the voices faded as quickly as they had emerged. It felt like they were beckoning me deeper into the building, away from the bright room and into the looming darkness. I drew a deep breath, then stepped outside the room. The air felt colder here, almost biting. I followed the trail of murmurs, trying to decipher their cadence. "Find the truth," they seemed to say, echoing the woman's voice from before. My fingers tightened around the sphere, as if it could shield me from whatever was lurking just beyond the veil. Then, something shifted at the edge of my vision. A shadow darted past, a flicker of movement so quick I almost thought I'd imagined it. I stopped, heart racing. "Who's there?" I called out, voice stronger this time. No answer came, just more whispers, this time a little louder, more frantic. That's when I noticed a shimmering glow coming from down the hall, a flicker of light dancing against the stone. I moved toward it, compelled by an irresistible urge. The shadows, however, clung tighter around me, warping the edges of my vision. As I approached the source, I felt a strange tension in the air, a shift in the atmosphere. The closer I got, the more I could see traces of the past etched into the walls. Images began to swirl before my eyes. The woman's face, the symbols, scenes of experiments in chilling clarity. Each flash felt like a piece of the puzzle falling into place, driving home my purpose. Then everything shifted again. Instead of the warmth of light, I was met with an explosion of cold energy that nearly knocked me off my feet. I stumbled back, barely managing to stay upright. Just then, an unearthly growl resonated through the hallway, louder than before. "Run!" a voice shouted, but it didn't sound human. The growl morphed into 1,000 echoes of discontent, and in that instant, clarity struck. I was not just looking for the woman. I was uncovering something far more sinister. But as I turned to escape, I noticed something that froze me in place. In the glow of the strange light, something moved toward me. It's a shape distinctly familiar, but twisted and wrong. My breath hitched as I realized. The shadows weren't just the absence of light, they were alive, and they were hungry. The shadows loomed closer, their edges shifting like restless water. I stumbled back, heart racing, the light from the sphere flickering wildly in my grip. My instincts screamed for me to run, but curiosity rooted me to the spot. The figure, if it could even be called that, twisted in agony, mimicking the shape of a person but spiraling into grotesque forms. "Help," it whispered, a voice that seemed layered with despair. It beckoned me forward, even as my gut twisted in protest. What was I seeing? Was this the woman I had sensed before, transformed by whatever dark magic infused this forgotten place? "No, stay back!" I yelled, feeling foolish as the words escaped me. I had no weapon, no means to defend myself against this entity that seemed to shift with every breath of air. The sphere pulsed in my hand, flickering like a heartbeat, trying to ward off the chilling presence. My mind raced, piecing together snippets of information. The experiments, the whispers. Were they all connected? This presence seemed trapped, yearning for something I couldn't yet understand. It wasn't just hungry, it was desperate. But then I noticed more shapes forming from the darkness around it, swirling into a mass that looked both like a crowd and a single beast. They didn't want help. They wanted something from me. Or perhaps they wanted me. With a quick glance behind me, I measured the distance to the hallway. The walls felt like they were closing in. And in the faint light ahead, I could see the glimmering doorway leading into the unknown. I had to escape, but I also felt the weight of the sphere urging me to understand. Drawing strength from instinct, I turned and raced toward the door, the light behind me flickering wildly as if it were alive with the figure's emotions. The growl morphed into a cacophony of voices, all pleading, clamoring. "Stay," they cried, echoing in overwhelming waves. "Why would I stay?" I shouted back, my voice trembling. In that moment, a shadow lunged at me, claws of darkness outstretched. I barely dodged it, feeling the icy breath wash over my skin. Fear propelled me, and I sprinted down the hall, desperate for a shred of safety. As I fled, the whispers turned into screams, a crescendo of anger and anguish that sliced through the air. Bursting into a small chamber, I slammed the door behind me and sealed it shut. The walls pulsed with strange symbols, as if they too were alive. There was something here I hadn't noticed before. A large tapestry, vibrant yet worn. Shapes and symbols weaved together told stories of power and loss, the woman's face emerging among them, trapped in time. I staggered forward, tracing the fabric with trembling fingers. Suddenly, one of the symbols glowed brightly, illuminating a series of words that fell into place immediately. Embrace your fear to uncover the truth. Panic surged through me again. What kind of truth could possibly justify the horrors I'd already witnessed? But before I could regain my thoughts, the door rattled violently. The shadows on the other side pressed against it, eager to break through, eager to finish what they'd started. I had to act. There was no turning back now. And just then, I noticed an opening behind the tapestry, a hidden passageway leading deeper into the building. I took a breath, heart pounding, and dashed toward the unknown, the oppressive darkness closing in behind me. The moment I slipped behind the tapestry, I felt a weird sense of relief mixed with dread. The passage was narrow, the air heavy and stale, almost suffocating. I could still hear the heavy thuds against the door, the shadows relentless in their pursuit. I pressed onward, driven by sheer survival instinct. The tunnel twisted and turned, leading me deeper into the heart of whatever this place was. The flickering light from the sphere cast erratic shadows along the damp walls. I stumbled in the darkness, narrowly avoiding obstacles that appeared from nowhere. Every step echoed the urgency of my situation. I had to get away. Suddenly I came to a halt, a crossroad. 3 different paths sprawled before me, each draped in darkness. I strained to listen, but could hear nothing except the pounding of my heart. The voices from moments ago faded, but left behind an unsettling echo. Which way? I felt overwhelmed. I took in the options before me. The left path whispered softly as if it invited me, while the right hummed with a strange energy. The center path, however, was ominously silent, like a predator lying in wait. A chill washed over me. I could feel the weight of the decisions pressing down on my shoulders. I hesitated, and a flicker of movement from the right caught my eye. Without thinking, I took a step toward it. As I moved forward, the light from my sphere brightened, illuminating ancient symbols etched into the walls. Warnings of some kind. I froze. The moment I stepped fully into the right path, a low growl resonated through the air, filled with a growling malice that made my blood run cold. The shadows began to coalesce again, forming into shapes that were more defined than before. One figure emerged in particular, towering and menacing, its eyes 2 glowing embers in a sea of darkness. "Turn back," it hissed. I couldn't stand there, frozen in fear. I had faced shadows already, but this felt different. The entity exuded an aura of malice that made my skin crawl. I pressed forward again, feeling the glowing sphere pulse faster, as if it sensed my fear. "Why are you here?" it demanded, voice thick with menace, reverberating off the walls. "You do not belong." "Neither do you," I shot back in a moment of courage, my voice strong despite the weight of the shadows around me. The shadows recoiled at my words. The figure transformed into a twisted visage of rage. "You would challenge me?" The space crackled with tension, and that brief connection shattered. The growl erupted into a roar, and I felt a surge of force rush toward me. My heart pounded in my chest as I stumbled backward. The choices I made in that moment felt overwhelming. Then everything went dark. A dim glow flickered from the left path, illuminating the possibility of escape. I had to move. I bolted down the path, trusting my instinct. I could almost hear the shadows exploding behind me, furious at my defiance. As I ran, I realized something. The sphere was not just a light. It was alive with energy, a potential key to understanding. I had to learn more, but first, I needed to find safety. Just as I reached the end of the passage, I caught my breath. Ahead was another chamber, this one filled with strange artifacts. They glinted in the sphere's light, promising untold secrets. I stepped inside, my hope ignited with the prospect of answers, and that's when I saw it. In the corner of the room, a large book lay open on a pedestal, the pages turning as if stirred by an unseen wind. The book called to me, its pages fluttering like the wings of a trapped creature. I stepped closer, the glow of the sphere illuminating the intricate designs embossed on the cover, symbols that matched those etched into the walls of the tunnel. My mind raced, piecing together the connections. I reached out, brushing my fingers against the pages. The writing was in an ancient script, curling and looping in elegant shapes I couldn't decipher. It felt alive, pulsating with a strange energy, just like the sphere. I knew I had to understand it. This might be my only chance to figure out where I was and how to escape. Suddenly, the air shifted. A weight settled around me, thick and oppressive. I turned, scanning the chamber for any sign of trouble. Shadows flickered at the edges of the room, teasing my fear, but I couldn't see anything more than darkness. The sense of being watched tightened my throat. In an attempt to focus, I returned to the book. There had to be something here. I flipped through a few pages cautiously, the writing twisting into newer formations that seemed familiar, yet entirely foreign. As I turned a page, a loud bang echoed throughout the chamber. My heart raced as I jolted back, nearly losing my grip on the sphere. The noise came from the direction I had entered. The shadows seemed to swirl, thickening until they formed into shapes, twisted and jagged, almost human but not quite. Panic gripped me, and the sphere, sensing my fear, brightened with a brilliant light, breaking through the darkness. "Show yourself," I shouted, feeling braver in the light. The shadows paused, expanding and contracting, almost as if they were contemplating my challenge. "I am bound to this place," a voice echoed, distant yet close, as if it came from the very walls around me. "You disturb what has been asleep for ages." "Then let it sleep," I managed. "I don't want any trouble. I just want to understand." "For understanding, you must know the price," it hissed, each word sharp like glass. The figures shifted closer, closing in around me. My breathing quickened. I felt the hairs on my neck rise, a primal instinct screaming at me to run. In that moment I remembered the book. Maybe it held the key to my survival. Forgetting my fear, I dove back to the pedestal, scanning the words. If I could find anything, any hint of knowledge, it might give me leverage. Just then, a gust of wind swept through the chamber, slamming the book shut. I panicked, grasping at the front cover, desperate to keep it open. "No! Wait!" But the shadows surged forward, a wave of darkness that swallowed the light. I fought against the encroaching presence, knowing I had only moments before that malevolent force would overtake me completely. The shadows howled, echoing their rage and intent. Then, a sensation of warmth spread from the sphere, a distinct contrast to the coldness around me. When I glanced down, the light shimmered, and suddenly, symbols from the book glowed in response. They illuminated the air, swirling with power. Was it a response to my plea? Before I could dwell on it, the shadows recoiled, hissing and retreating, at least for the moment. But I could tell they would return. I had to remember those symbols. I had to find a way to harness their power. I darted back to the book, skin prickling with urgency. The battle had only just begun. I took a deep breath, shaking off the lingering fear. The shadows had pulled back, but I couldn't shake the feeling they were biding their time. I had dealt with enough strange things in my life to know that a retreat was often just a prelude to something worse. I faced the book again and focused on the symbols glowing in the air. They flickered like fireflies, dancing just out of reach. Maybe if I could touch them, I could understand their meaning. I extended my hand, but just as my fingertips grazed one, the symbols vanished, leaving me with nothing but darkness and doubts. "Come on," I muttered to myself. I flipped through the book again, determined not to let fear sway me. The pages now felt slick and warm beneath my fingers, almost breathing. The further I read, the more I recognized patterns in the text, like pieces of a puzzle trying to fit together in my mind. "What are you?" I whispered to the book, hoping it would somehow respond. I traced one of the swirling edges of the script. With each line I read, fragments of meaning began to clear. It spoke of a gateway, a way to traverse dimensions, and something about binding forces. But I couldn't piece it all together. The urgency of my situation nudged me to press on. A sudden chill swept through the air, sending a shudder up my spine. I sensed the shadows returning, slowly coiling around the edges of the chamber. My heart raced again. I needed to find something, anything, that could help me. Then, amidst the ancient script, I caught a glimpse of a drawing. It was a strange symbol, stark against the ornate writing, almost like a key. My breath caught. If this was truly a key, I needed to replicate it. I fished in my pocket for a pen, but the darkness pressed down, its fingers reaching out for me, tugging at my clothes like a child wanting attention. I could hear their whispers, low and insistent, barely audible but unmistakable. "Leave. Leave now," they taunted. "I'm not going anywhere," I declared defiantly, the light from the sphere flaring brighter in response. With shaky hands I began sketching the symbol on one of the blank pages. I poured every ounce of focus into it. Every stroke felt like a battle against the encroaching shadows. Just as I finished, the entire room seemed to vibrate. Then, everything shifted. It felt like solid ground beneath me was dissolving. A burst of light erupted, blinding me momentarily. I stumbled back, the book flying from my hands, landing beside the pedestal. The shadows recoiled in horror, losing their grip on the chamber. I could feel the energy pulsing from the book resonating with my heart. Shapes in the darkness shifted, reforming into something more defined. Figures that resembled lost souls, caught between worlds. In that moment, a new urgency gripped me. They were trapped. I had to help them, but how? And what had I just unlocked with that drawing? Before I could dwell on it too much, a fierce wind whipped through, a storm of shadows growing anew. The dim lights flickered, and I knew I was in a race against whatever haunted this place. I had to act quickly. I reached for the book again, desperate to keep the power connected to the symbol I had drawn. It was my only hope, but the question lingered. Would it be enough to face what was to come? The dust swirled around me as I fought for balance. The chamber felt alive with energy, tension electrifying the air. I grasped the book and peered closely at the symbol I had drawn. It pulsed in rhythm with the other symbols around the room. Perhaps this was the key I needed to confront whatever lurked in the shadows. As I concentrated, the sphere in my palm began to react. Its glow intensified, bathing the chamber in warm light that pushed back against the encroaching darkness. The shadows writhed, reluctant to approach, though the growls from the depths of the building only grew louder. My pulse quickened. I had to do something. Taking a deep breath, I turned my attention back to the pages of the book. I flipped through the chapters and focused on the ancient script. Each line began feeling like an incantation, slowly unraveling the puzzles woven into the fabric of the building's past. I would find a way to break the cycle of despair commanding this place. Suddenly, I felt vibrations beneath my feet, throbbing like a heartbeat. The shadows gathered strength, coalescing into forms, figures I could almost recognize. I had to move. My heart raced with each step as I positioned myself to face the darkest presence blocking my way. "Release them!" I shouted, hoping my voice could slice through the throaty growl merging with the shadows. Perhaps the light from the sphere would burn away the chains binding these lost souls. I raised the book as if it were a shield. As the shadowy forms twisted, their faces became clear. I recognized the anguish in their eyes. They were pleading for freedom. At that moment, I felt tethered, almost aligned, to something beyond myself. I closed my eyes tightly, reciting the ancient phrases I could barely recall from the book, mixing what I remembered with the deep-seated desire to heal. The air crackled, winds swirling like a tempest, and in an explosion of movement, the symbols around me ignited with brilliant light. I heard screams, not of anger but of agony mixed with hope. The light surged, pushing back against the shadows. The air itself ignited with energy, swirling around me as figures began to break free, light pouring through what had once been dense darkness. I felt it, their joy mingling with my breath. Then it stopped. The incandescent glow faded, replaced by darkness once more. A low growl reverberated, echoing through the chamber, limbs brushing past me like wraiths. Panic seized me. Had I saved anyone at all? But just as my hope began to dim, the light stood at bay, resonating brighter and stabilizing. The shadows paused, halted by the brilliance. I realized I had unwittingly woven a protection with the very fabric of the building. This was not just a battle against darkness, it was a reclamation of what had been lost. With renewed strength I turned again, the book now blazing with inscriptions, a testament of what had been fought for. I faced the looming shadows head-on. "You cannot keep them," I shouted, striving to command the raw energy surging within. But then I saw her again, the woman with long hair drifting like smoke, surrounded by a cocoon of light, radiating strength. "You have come far," she stated, her voice a blend of strength and sorrow. "Yet the truth is bound to a time long past. You cannot leave until they are free." "Then let me help," I pleaded. A crackling wave of energy enveloped me as the shadows started to swirl faster. "To understand, you must confront your fear. To face the truth, you must be willing to let go," she urged, her image flickering. The air thickened around me as the shadows seemed to elongate, closing in. Every whisper became tangible, urging me to flee, to abandon this fight. But I stood my ground, centering my focus on the shadows swirling before me. "I will not give in," I roared, raising the sphere. Instinctually, I knew what I had to do. Mixing the incantations from the book, I called out their names, the lost souls who had been bound to this fate. With each name that crossed my lips, the darkness flared, stinging my eyes and pouring out into the surrounding void. The air pulsed, shimmering as the shadows writhed, their wrath yet coiling around me. But then, the luminescent symbols illuminated the room, like stars flaring to life in the night sky, piquing the growth of strength. "There!" I shouted, and a powerful beam of energy shot forward, breaking the shadow's grip and igniting everything in a tidal wave of light. With a deafening roar, the darkness reared back as if struck. My breath caught, and I felt an overwhelming shift in the atmosphere. I was no longer battling against the shadows, rather I was aiding the spirits. I recalled the warmth of the sphere and felt the connection strengthen. The souls began breaking free, torn from their bindings, wails escaping as they rejoiced in their freedom. For those brief moments, I witnessed faces of hope, grief, and gratitude. Then, just as swiftly as they'd transitioned to light, they burst through the shadows, leaving behind only whispers. As their energy faded, the remaining shadows stuttered, uncertain. In one final blaze, I pushed forward, channeling everything into the sphere driven by the growth of light. And suddenly, it all stopped. The darkness receded, shriveling like mist caught in the rising sun. I was left breathless, the walls standing tall yet different now. The shadows were gone, unveiled in the absence of fear. I could see nothing but the remnants of faded symbols around me, a contrast to what once lurked here. And yet as the stillness enveloped, a gnawing emptiness tugged at my heart. Though the immediate danger had passed, I felt the weight of unresolved questions. What had truly happened in this facility? Was the woman I aided truly freed, or was she forever part of this cycle? I glanced one last time at the chamber, eyes landing on the book left behind. It lay closed, a testament of those who had come before me, and yet hinted at so many revelations still unturned. With a bittersweet pang in my heart, I turned away, stepping into the dim glow of the hallway beyond. I had escaped the clutches of fear, but somewhere within, I understood this wasn't the end. Questions would linger, whispers would beckon, and secrets remained locked just beyond reach. As I made my way back toward the exit, I knew I wouldn't be returning to this place. But I still carried its weight with me, a reminder of shadows danced between the realms of light and darkness, a truth that would forever shape my path ahead.